Welcome to this week's edition of Focus On with me, Prudence Makobalo, where we are at the General Shareholders Meeting of Africa50 in Mozambique, Maputo, where dignitaries have signed deals and stakeholders to be able to bridge in Africa's infrastructural development, as well as gaining insights in terms of public project development to be able to initialize plans to enhance economic growth in the African continent. Just to give us a clear explanation, what is the significance of Africa50, most especially now that it's hosted in Mozambique, and also your key takeaways within this event?
Thank you very much. The key takeaways that I have from the meeting that has been held here in Mozambique, in Maputo, the first one is that it has been agreed that we have a deficiency in infrastructure in Africa. That has been agreed. It has been agreed that we need to have bankable projects. That's our shortfall. We don't have bankable projects. That's why we sometimes don't have finances. It was agreed totally that we do have the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, but we need to utilize it. But in order to utilize it, we need infrastructure, logistics. So we have to work on that. And most of the countries have started in projects. We, Tanzania, a newcomer in the Africa50, we became a shareholder in 2023, but we are going to host next year, and we are looking forward to host next year. We do have some projects in our country that we are working on with Africa50, and some of them is we have the commercial city of Dar es Salaam. We are looking at distribution of gas in Dar es Salaam, and also having a mini grid for the industries that are remote. So those are some of the projects. And also another one which is clearly very important is the electricity transmission, which will go with the PPP. So those are some of the takeaways, I would say.
Now that you've mentioned that it will be hosted in Tanzania, just to get an in-depth understanding on which key sectors where this initiative will actually be explored in.
Okay. Well, because it focuses on infrastructure, and infrastructure is wide. It's not only the infrastructure like roads and railways, but there's also the digital part, which was also discussed very clearly in this meeting. So in terms of infrastructure, we in Tanzania, I would say we have been blessed. We had other projects, but those are showcases of which we will showcase them also. Not necessarily that they have come from Africa50, but they are part of an infrastructure, which is the requirement for joining Africa. We do have the standard gauge line, which starts from Dar es Salaam to Msongati in Burundi, and also to Kivu in DRC. So those are some of the projects that are to be implemented by Africa50, not only inter, but also intra-regional, from one country to another. So we are looking forward to have that. And Tanzania has a great experience in holding these large conventions, meetings, because we just had in January 2025 the energy meeting. We had, as said, about 37 heads of state, and it was a very successful one. So we are, one of the sectors that we have in mind is energy, because we do have the energy compact. Tanzania is one of the countries that implement the energy compact. And we also look forward for infrastructure, because we are geographically advantaged. We have our neighbors, 6 countries who are landlocked. We have Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC, Zambia, Malawi. Those are landlocked. And they also depend on our port, but also the network that we have, which crosses from region to region or from country to country, will facilitate trade, because we really need to facilitate trade among ourselves.
Just to explain to us, what is the importance of the GCM Africa 50, and also what's its significance?
Okay, thank you for having me. So the GSM for Africa50 is first a governance event, like any normal company. But what we are doing is that we have this GSM taking place in different countries who are our shareholder, and Mozambique is one of our shareholders. And each GSM has its own theme. And this year we have the two teams, which is powering Africa growth, actually around energy and industrialization. The second one is unleashing trade and connectivity, so around borders and energy connectivity for people and goods. And also it is the opportunity to showcase the achievement that countries are doing. For example, for Mozambique, it's really being a regional hub for electricity, but as well as being a hub for the African continent free trade area through the ports that they have, but also making their borders seamless in terms of movement of people and goods.
Yeah. And also, let's just get into the challenges that we have encountered as the African continent, most especially within the energy infrastructure.
Actually, if we talk about challenge, and it is in all sector, the first one is how to bring financing. And if you want to bring financing, because our country's public resources cannot finance everything, you need to bring private financing and the right way. So the first thing you have to do is develop project, taking project from concept to bankability. And if you don't do so, you cannot bring in investor. Now, if you focus on the energy sector, I think the first challenge was how do you generate enough electricity. We have needs who are growing in Africa, the population growing, which is a good thing. And so people are getting better off economically, so they consume more electricity. Industrialization, so all those things are good things. So you have to generate more. Now we know more or less how to have independent power producer. This is being under control. We have gas that we can use as a resources. The second part is making sure that also we do the climate transition, so generating renewables. And if we take the SADC region, and we have a lot of hydropower, we have solar, so there's a lot of generation resources all around Africa, and people are using it more and more. Third thing in the energy sector is how you connect the generation plant to the consumer. And so this is the grid. And how do you build a grid and to allow people to have access to electricity in the rural area, in the suburban areas, but at the same time also upgrade the grid, because as I said earlier, the needs are growing.
So what contribution does the GCM have in progress of the AfCFTA, and what important factor does it contribute into that, onto the AFCFTA?
Now, regarding the African continent free trade area, when we talk about free trade area, we refer to movement of goods and people. How to allow the seamless movement of those two elements. And, in the African continent, the logistic part is the main part of costs. And this is the part that does not enable, trade between African countries. And by enabling movement at the borders between for people and goods, we work on that. So with the African Continental Free Trade Area, we are signing a MOU where we are working on building a solution for customs and border management. So this is what we are looking at with the AFCFTA.
So how important is collaboration, most especially when coming to public and the private sector?
As I said, our governments, our countries, they have challenges, but good challenges. I want to reiterate that, because we have young people to educate. We have growing population where we have to cater for their needs in terms of health. We have to look at our security. So all those are very sovereign areas where you have to spend public money, even if private money is coming into education and health sector, but still. So you have to partner with private sector. And as I said earlier, this is very important for our continent to bring in private investor to mobilize domestic resources first. And that's what we did at Africa50 with the Africa50 Infrastructure Acceleration Fund, whereas we have 22 institutional investors. 20 of them are African institutional investors led by AFDB, and they were the first one to be on board with us, and this is important. So mobilizing domestic capital, but also finding some other way to finance our infra. And we talk about asset recycling. How do you unlock the the cash which is, into some infra built by the public sector and enable the government to invest into other infra. So that's why, and this is where Africa50 is really playing a big role. And this too comes with the capacity to develop project. And that we are going to, we close the Alliance for Green Infra. In Africa, this fund with developing project, climate-friendly project. So the first close is 115 million USD that we did. And this also is something that we are bringing to be able to, we are doing to be able to bring more private investment.
Yeah, and just before I let you go, what are the key takeaways within this event, and what can actually one learn on this initiative of the GSM?
The key takeaway that is we can do things. We can do things because when we come to the conference, we sign deals. We exchange, but we sign deals. I talk about Asia, the first close. I talk about the MOU with the AFC, TF. I talked about also the MOU that we are signing with the Mozambican government to digitalize Mozambique, and by building a 1.4 megawatt data center, and also working on the transmission on the grid. We are building a 800 kilometer around 3 lines, which are a total of 800 kilometer of transmission line. So we can do things. Things happen, and we have to look at how we can collaborate between African countries, between private institutional African investor and also African countries, yet looking at how to bring in investor from out of Africa and to be able to really lower the perception of risk when investing into Africa. Because Africa, we don't default. We don't default, but yet people have a perception of risk on us. So this is the key takeaway. We can do things among us. We can do things with others. And the objective is really to lower the perception and enable more private investment flowing into Africa.
And that's all we've had from this week's edition of Focus On. From myself and the team, it's goodbye for now.